10 Ways to Fool the Authorities and Escape Martial Law. Martial law under a government with bad intentions can have devastating consequences. Is history about to repeat itself, and will we face a violent enactment of martial law in the years ahead? Here are 10 ways to fool the authorities and escape with your life and family. A violent and horrifying life in a concentration camp is what you may face one day under martial law. We're not talking about a regional or short-term enactment of martial law. We're talking about martial law under a government with an agenda to root out and destroy any elements that are not in line with their specific agenda. How many people learned the hard way in World War II that the Nazis hated Jews and wanted to exterminate them? In a government collapse following any number of disastrous events that might befall a nation, we can bet that the next government to come to power in this day and age will need force, and a lot of it, in order to quell a rebellious people. Force shows power, and overwhelming violence spreads fear across a population. And there's no better way to show force and enact fear into a people than to violently enforce martial law. Making sense of all these cyber attacks. In World War II, the Nazis set out to conquer Europe. It was part of the Nazi agenda before World War II ever began. If it's going to happen to us, we can bet that extensive planning and military operations that include secret government agents, computer hacking, weapons smuggling, and covert alliances are already taking place. In the end, who will be the governing party that will enact martial law? It won't be under an American flag. Not the flag of our founding fathers, that is. Don't get me wrong. The American flag may still fly, but if it does fly, it's going to be dwarfed by a larger flag with any number of national or foreign symbols poised above it. Escaping martial law. Run. Don't walk, run. With death bearing down on your community, on your neighborhood, on your front door, it's better to make a hasty retreat for the countryside than to wait too long and find out the hard way that you waited too long to evacuate. From the countryside, you can hide safely under the cover of the forest, and make plans and preparations for the next leg of your journey. A large number of people were able to escape the Nazis by fleeing into the forests, surviving the weather and foraging for food, and eventually escaping. Sometimes they had the help of underground elements, resistance fighters, and their supporters. Seek cover and stay camouflaged. The people who waited too long to evacuate, or moved too slowly, or didn't do a good job hiding out, were rounded up, or simply shot where they were found. The key to not being found is to stay under cover. You don't want to be spotted from a drone, helicopter, or plane circling in the air. Avoid line of sight. Position yourself so that your path of travel isn't visible to anyone scouring the land with binoculars. Trees and tall brush can provide concealment from every direction. Avoid meadows and open spaces. Be ready to belly crawl slowly. Not getting caught is of utmost importance. Be ready to drop to your belly and crawl on all fours, stomach and head low to the ground, and move at a snail's pace. Moving extremely slow will help you avoid snapping twigs and also avoid shaking the brush or tall grass around you, movement which can give away your position to anyone close by. Be patient if you have any questions or suspicions about a possible searching party trying to track your position. Be ready to stop moving completely and simply lay right where you are for the next several hours until the cover of dark perhaps, or when you feel it's safe to start moving again. Hide off trail. The further you can get from any noticeable trail to hide, or just to sleep, the better. If these are just soldiers acting on orders, they may not be too excited about slugging through a swamp or wetland, or climbing a steep hill of dense brush, which brings us to choose the path of most resistance. From your starting point, what is the hardest way into the wilderness? What has the most brush, the steepest gully, that is still passable? If authorities are not right on your tail, and you have a head start, consider taking a path that no one in their right mind would be likely to take. It might take you 30 minutes to climb a 200-yard hillside through the woods, but if that hillside climb puts you on a path off the beaten track, you can increase the odds that you'll never be found, and that no one is going to follow the path you have taken. Cover your tracks. Soldiers acting on authorities to round up evacuees might not be well trained or have any real training in tracking. That said, you should be cautious along whatever path you take, not to leave signs of your presence, and especially not to leave signs revealing the direction you are traveling. Signs to avoid are: broken branches. Avoid breaking branches. Even twigs breaking off brush as you pass by are telltale signs pointing to your presence. Flattened grass. Crawling through an open area of grass comes with a danger. You may leave a trail of flattened grass pointing in your direction of travel if you have time, and you have to travel through grass for a short distance into the grass. Turn at repeated points, and use your hands to stand the grass back up, so that it's no longer flattened and conceals your path of travel. Footmarks in damp soil. Be ever cautious about open areas of soil, especially damp soil. Damp soil is a fast way to leave a shoe print revealing your direction of travel. Step cautiously over and around open areas of soil to avoid leaving shoe prints. Campfires. Smoke from campfires can alert people from miles away to your location, and ashes from a campfire on the ground can tell trackers just how long it's been since you were there. As much as possible, avoid any campfires until you are a very safe distance away. Keep them short, brief, and very small when you do need one. Litter. Don't drop anything to signal your presence, from an empty matchbook to a cigarette lighter to garbage from your food supplies. Bury everything you don't want well off trail where it won't be found. Fool any pursuers. So you plan on entering the woods near a highway? Cross to the other side of the highway and break a number of branches and clear a path of brush and create what looks like a trail leading in the opposite direction you actually plan to travel. Continue forward along that false trail you've started, and leave additional signs giving pursuers the impression that is the direction you or others are traveling. Now go back to your original planned starting point, perhaps choosing the path of most resistance, and head off in the opposite direction. Pull this off and you've just made a safe getaway, and any pursuers will be shortly later on a wild goose chase leading to nowhere. Now is a great time to litter. Remember that rule above about avoiding littering. Well, there is a time to litter, and that is when you want to use litter as a way to fool pursuers into believing you went one direction, or crossed a river, when you actually doubled back and went another way. Consider dropping an empty matchbook and arranging things to look like a temporary campsite. In one area, urinate or pour water on the ground, and then make footprints in the damp soil that look like you are walking in a certain direction. Got an old shirt? Cut a length of paracord and tie it securely to a rock, and then tie both to a shirt. Wrap the rock in the shirt and then throw both over a narrow river you have no intention to cross. Choose a point in the river where it would be a dangerous crossing so that the rock and shirt fall on the other side of the river where the shirt is visible to anyone searching from your side of the river. Dunk your shirt in the water to give it more weight prior to your toss. It should travel a few feet further than it might if it was dry. In a short while any pursuers who see your shirt may be fooled into thinking you crossed over the river. By the time they cross, if they are even able to cross, remember this is a fast point of the river we're talking about, and discover the rock tied to your shirt, and possibly realize they've been fooled. You may be far off in a different direction. Make it more believable by making footprints in a damp area of sand or dirt near the river bank that point to the river. Only carry the essentials. If you're prepared, and in reality everyone should be prepared, you would have had a bug-out bag packed and ready to go, though a lighter weight bug-out bag may be called for if you find that you need to make a hasty retreat and have a tough road ahead of you. What are some ways you can shed pounds from your backpack? When it comes to the outdoors, it's common for people to bring more changes of clothing than they actually need. The more time you spend in the outdoors, and the more time you spend on any treks of any real distance, you'll realize that you can get by in the same set of clothing just fine. Having a second outfit you can wear as an additional layer is recommended, as evening temperatures can drop, and you don't want to freeze. The point of all this is that too many outfits will only bulk up your bag and add extra weight and only slow down your travel time. Avoid carrying a tent. Instead, carry a simple waterproof bivy sack. A bivy sack is a thin yet rugged bag designed to fit over a sleeping bag and keep you sheltered from the elements. Carry less water into the wilderness, unless traveling through dry areas where natural water sources are few or non-existent for several miles at a time. Then you'll want to carry a lot more water than normal. Be sure to have a plan for procuring drinking water along the way. Choose a smaller flashlight that takes smaller batteries but always have a few extra. A headlamp is a great choice because it gives you free use of your hands, allowing you to climb or pick your way through brush if you have to escape during the cover of night. Of course, be smart about when you use it, as any kind of light can give away your position to someone trying to track you. Cut your emergency candle in half. Have a 55-hour emergency candle? Take a hacksaw to it, and cut it in half to 22.5 hours of burn time. Pack calorie-rich freeze-dried food or lightweight food bars that do not need any water to prepare. Stopping to collect water can cause you to lose precious minutes when you are making a run for it, thus a non-perishable meal that is ready to eat as soon as you open the package is a good idea to keep stored in your vehicle and your bug-out bag. Include a plan to snack on edible insects. Some of you are squeamish at this idea, but edible insects can provide enough calories and help you get by for a few extra hours or even days at a time, adding time and distance to your escape from otherwise captivity and possible death in a concentration camp. Right now your goal is to just get away. You can hunt, fish, and trap once you are dozens of miles away or more into a remote area. As you move along the forest floor and or along a river's edge, be ready to collect edible plants, roots, nuts, and berries, but be careful, many are poisonous and not edible. It may be a lot easier for you to recognize edible insects and make do with these instead of risking your life with plants, roots, nuts, and berries found in the forest. Remember, the wrong plant or berry can be a fast way to an early death. Foraging is a skill that today can be learned by reading books on foraging for wild plants, taking classes, and then practicing what you have learned so that you are ready for a survival situation. Be careful what you tell people. If you come across strangers, keep details about your travels to yourself. Unless they're part of your group, no need to share details, just in case these strangers you are talking with are soon after caught by authorities and give up your location. What about tracking dogs? While tracking dogs may be a threat for some evacuees, a large-scale evacuation into the countryside is likely to leave authorities short-handed and short on adequately trained canine teams. Press on and keep traveling. Feel like there's enough distance between you and them? Don't take any chances and be ready to spend a few more days and even weeks traveling into remote areas. Better safe than sorry. Hunting pressure and large numbers of evacuees fleeing into the wilderness in several regions of the country will send native wildlife fleeing for remote areas where there is a lot less human activity. It is these remote areas that the hunting is likely to be best, especially hunting for bigger game like deer, elk, antelope, and moose. Seek out remote wilderness. The survivors from a tyrannical government that may one day come to power. If we have to run from a tyrannical government that one day comes to power and enacts martial law, we may not have any allied nations to flee to at all, and so the only real way to survive long-term may be to seek out remote wilderness far off the beaten track, well under the cover of forest. Gotta hide from those drones, as well as lands shielded by mountains where there's no roads. There's no easy way for armies to move enemy soldiers in and out, putting the odds of escaping the clutches of tyranny and martial law in your favor. Teach the children. While the history books are being rewritten by the new powers that be, while the White House lays in ruin and Lady Liberty is just a scattered mountain of debris and a face laying horizontally across the ground, there will be one book that stands the test of time, with a history that can and should be passed on to children. There may be a lot of debate and some people swear by it and others swear against it, but only in the last pages of the Bible and the many prophecies concerning the end of days will any of this ever make any sense. There are several more details on survival when it comes to martial law and being forced into a life of living off the land and living off what you and your family can carry on your backs. Unfortunately, this isn't fiction, and it's something that has occurred more and more in recent years. Refugees in war-torn nations. Do I need to make a list? And other nations struck by catastrophic disasters, Haiti, for example, have sent survivors fleeing for the countryside or simply living in the ruins of their towns and villages and large tent cities that have bred crime and corruption, along with dangers to women and children and the fathers and brothers who would otherwise seek to protect them. In war-torn nations in the modern day, and regions turned to ruins by natural disasters, many have died from starvation and disease, and others from drinking contaminated water, others have fallen victim to gangs or been killed by rogue armies that have come to power, perhaps enforcing their own version of martial law. Could martial law under a tyrannical government come to the US? Could it come to the UK, Canada, and other Western nations? Best to be ready and not caught off guard, should martial law one day arrive soon.